Hi, welcome to this episode of The Daily. My name is Brendan Malone. Well, last week here in Christchurch, New Zealand, we had another big earthquake. It was a heck of a shock and caused a bit of damage along the way. Thankfully, it was not major and didn't shut down the city, and there was not a catastrophic loss of life. But it was a real powerful reminder about the forces of Mother Nature and how powerful they are, and really how beyond our control they actually are too. And for a lot of people, that of course invoked a lot of the previous fears, and it was for those of us who lived through that period of the last 5 years have been a bit shakier around this particular part of the world. At times it was constant and very large earthquakes, and it was a pretty fearful time at times for a lot of people. Certainly stressful for those who weren't necessarily that scared, and a lot of anxiety issues and other things for people. Now, after that earthquake, it got me thinking, because I saw in the days following that earthquake a slew of articles talking about how you could process the fear and the stress of it all and everything else. And it was interesting to me that really I think a couple of key bits of information were missing from a lot of those articles. And so thus the focus of today's episode of The Daily, which is about dealing with fear. Not just earthquake fear, but any fear really. In this case, though, I do want to focus in on the earthquake in particular. And one bit of information I think is really vital is once you've got all the information that you need from the media about the earthquake, so they've told you everything where it happened and whether or not you need to evacuate and whether or not there are any other emergency precautions that you need to take. So, around drinking water or electricity or anything like that. So once you know the important information and you know everything that you need to know, turn off the media broadcasts. Walk away from the news websites, turn off the media broadcasts. The other thing I would say is, okay, you might want to share your feelings on social media, but once you've done that, turn off the social media and walk away from it. Connect with your family, obviously, let them know you're okay, but don't get stuck in that zone of the media or the social media, because what happens is the media coverage tends to be more sensationalist. The social media coverage is just people often speculating and throwing things out there. And all that does is it adds to the hype. It adds to the obsession. It gets people caught into a cycle and a circle of obsession on that particular issue. And there's nothing worse than that for driving fear. So you've actually got to get away from that obsessive compulsive focus on something in order to begin to give your mind a chance to really process it and to put it into context and to move on without all that fear and the baggage of fear holding you back. So you've got to find, and one of the things I'd recommend that you do is once you've shut those things off is go and find something else to do that's going to take your mind off of the event. So go and spend time with your family playing a board game, or do a DIY task, or go for a run, whatever it takes, just to get yourself back into a routine where the earthquake is, or whatever the fear is really, is not dominating and totally in control of your thought processes. If you sit there and look at social media and the media, I guarantee you, that's all that's going to happen. It's going to become an obsessive thing, and that just feeds the fear. And the other thing I think it's important too is we do need to recognise that we can't control everything. And so much of these sort of fears around these things comes from a desire to try and be in control. And when we're out of control, it's terribly, terribly terrifying for us. And so it's important to try to remind ourselves, and that's easier said than done. I think one thing that I think is really important is the old maxim that true courage is not the absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and just doing the right thing or getting on with life anyway. So it's okay to be scared about these things. That doesn't mean that you are any less of a person or anything like that at all. So it's just a matter of accepting that. And I would say one of the important things that has really helped me in life in dealing with fear is there's a basic principle that the Navy SEALs work by, and they say that when a person is under stress, when they're under fear, when they're under anxiety, when it all sort of breaks down, people always resort to the habits that they have trained. So train the good habits that you need. So first of all, the mental habits for dealing with fear and processing it, the practical things you can do to try and shift your mind into another gear. So practice those habits so that when a big earthquake or something terrifying does happen, you've got a process in place to actually, you fall back on that habit rather than going, oh, what do I do? And the other thing to do is some of the practical training you can do. It reminded me again, the earthquake on the weekend reminded me I needed to go through with our children the earthquake drills again. And particularly for our house, the specifics of our house, any areas that I want them to avoid if there's an earthquake and what they should do when it happens. And so the reason I did that was because one of my big fears is for my children in these situations. So to deal with that fear, I went back, we had a couple of little drills with them, and that it gave me a bit more of a security, and there's a sense now of a habit that they have and that I have as well, if you like. I've trained a certain habit into me so that when these situations do arise, there's a bit less of that fear and I'm falling back on an instinct rather than just obsessing and freaking out about what's going on. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily.